Hello, beautiful people. Welcome. We are going to be covering the solving equations for our quiz that we will be taking. I'm just going to cover just a few things that I want you to recall before you take the quiz. For number one, we're going to cover a one-step equation. So one step literally takes one step for you to solve this equation. For example, if we have z minus 8 is equal to 13. Here's your equation. We know this is an equation because it has an equal sign. So here's our thinking bubble. Equations have equal signs. So they have an equal sign. So if it doesn't have an equal sign, it is not an equation and we cannot solve it. We can only simplify it. All right, so step number one always is draw a dotted line. Step number two is put a box around your variable. So put a box around your letter, but don't just put a box around your letter, put a box around the term that contains your letter, okay? Then we're gonna work on the stuff that is outside of our bubble. So I'm noticing that I have a minus 8 outside the bubble. So what is the opposite of a minus 8? We can do a plus 8. So I'm gonna add 8 to both sides. Draw a line underneath. So what's really great about solving equations, this method, is we get to do things that make us feel good. For example, 8 minus 8 will make us feel really good because that's just 0. So we get to cross that out. We get to cancel that out. Bring down your z. We did not touch that z, right? We didn't do anything with that term, so we're going to bring it down. 13 plus 8, I don't know what that is off the top of my head, so I'm going to use my fingers. So we're going to say 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Now, I know you didn't see me use my fingers, but trust me, I truly did use my fingers. Fingers are a great tool. Definitely use them when you're counting. Now, this dotted line represents an equal sign. So then instead of having that dotted line, I'm going to put an equals, carry that term over. So our answer is 21. Now, because these are one-step equations, you can always replace the variable with the term what and translate that into English. So if you wanted a translation, it would be something like what minus 8 is 13. So you can translate it. What minus 8 is 13? And then you can use the guess and check method to say maybe 20 take away 13. Excuse me, maybe 20 take away 8 is 13. Maybe 23 take away 8 is 13. You can play around with your numbers like that. I find this method here is going to help us when we do the two-step equations. Now, when you are doing the one-step equations, one type of question that you may notice is something like this. So that brings us to example number 2. You might see x divided by 5 is equal to 6. So this translation is what divided by 5 is 6. So what is divided by 5? That gives you the answer of 6. So I'm going to show you a trick on this. So if you have a variable on top, so notice this variable is on top. What you're going to do is you're going to take these two numbers and you're going to multiply. So what this is, it says 5 times 6 is x, or what? So the way you're going to read this is 5 multiplied 6 is x. So again, another way to say is 5 times 6 is blank. So what is 5 times 6? Well, 5 times 6 is 30. So that means x is equal to 30. Okay. Now, what if the variable is on the opposite side? So that brings us to example number 3. if the variable is on the opposite side. So let's do 12 divided by 4 is equal to r. So this is, translation for it, is 12 divided by 4 is r. So what is 12 divided by 4? Again, we're going to use the same method here. So we're going to multiply these two. And then this is our answer. So we're going to say 4 times r is 12. That is the same thing as saying 4 times what is 12. So that is 4 times what is 12. So 4 times 3 is 12. So therefore, our answer for r is 3. And again, this answer came from this number that we plugged in. Okay. Now these are all one-step equations. Okay, equation means it has an equal sign. We're able to solve for a variable. It takes us one step to do that. Now we need to move on to two-step equations. Two-step. So example number 4, we have 2x minus 8 is equal to 4. Same thing like in example number 1, we are going to start off with putting a dashed line, boxing our term with the variable. Make sure that you grab the sign if there is a sign in front of it, like a minus. Make sure you take that inside of your bubble. We're going to work with the terms that are outside of our bubble. So negative 8 is outside of our bubble. So we have the opposite of that. Minus 8 plus 8 is the opposite. Again, bring down the term inside the bubble. It was not touched, so we need to keep it. What feels really good when we do the opposite of terms is they equal to 0, so they cancel. 8 plus 4, again, I'm going to use my finger, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so then I tell my class that mathematicians are super duper lazy. So there are things in math that because mathematicians are lazy, we don't write. We think it's a waste of time, so we no longer write them. One of those things is a dot or a multiplication symbol between a number and a variable when they're put together. So 2x, even though there's nothing between the 2 and the x, there really is, it's just mathematicians are just too lazy to write that. So this reads 2 times x. So what is the opposite of multiplication? How do we undo multiplication? So the way to undo multiplication is we're going to divide. So what you do here is you take this number, and you're going to divide by that same number. And then write the x next to it. You're going to take this number and divide by 2. You have to have the divided by 2 for both. So if you divide by 2 here, you must divide by 2 here. You cannot change the number that you are dividing by. That number has to be the same. And again, there are things when solving an equation that feel super duper good. One of those things is when they cancel because they equal to 0. Another thing is when you divide by the same number, it cancels out by giving you a big ol' 1. So that is a big ol' 1. So 1x, we're going to bring down the x. 12 divided by 2. And remember, that's the same thing as saying 12 divided by 2. Ooh, excuse me. So 12 divided by 2. Or it's saying 2 times what is 12. So what is, let me back up. 2 times what is 12? So what number do we need when we multiply by 2 to give us 12? So the answer 2 times 6. 2 times 6 is 12. So we simplify this fraction and we're going to say x is 6 and you are done. Okay. Got one more for you. So let's say, so we are on example number 5. Let me shift this up just a little bit. Oh, there we go. So example number 5, let's say we have something like this. 3 minus 7x is equal to 24. The steps are the same. So we're going to draw the dashed line, dotted line. We're going to put a box around the term with our variable. Make sure you are taking that sign with you. Doesn't matter what that sign is, you must include it in your box with the term with the variable. And we do the same process all over again. Okay, so what is outside of the box? 3 is outside of the box. 3 is positive. So what is the opposite of a positive 3? The opposite of a positive 3 is a minus 3 or a negative 3. So 3 minus 3, what feels really good is that is equal to 0. We did nothing with our minus 7x, so we're bringing that down. And then 24 take away 3 is 21. Again, we take the number that is in front of our x. Mathematicians are super duper lazy, so there is a dot between that. That dot represents multiply or multiplication. So we're going to divide by that same number, the same number. We're going to divide by that same number. So again, these two on both sides have to match. So what feels good? This step makes it feel good because this is just a big old one. What is left over? X is left over. And then this right here says negative 7 times what is 21. So how many negatives do we see? I see one negative here, but I see no negatives here. That means if there was a negative here, that means we only need one negative. But because this negative disappears, it has to be multiplied by something to make it disappear. So the only way to get rid of this negative and to make the answer here positive is we have to multiply it by a negative. Now, 7 times what is 21? I'm going to 7, 14. So I'm counting by 7. So I'm counting how many times I have to count 7s in order to get to 21. So 7, 14, 14 plus 7 is 21. So I need 3. So this right here is 21 divided by negative 7. So I have negative 3 as my answer. Okay. All right. I hope you are all prepared for your quiz, solving 1-step and 2-step equations. Again, if you have any questions, definitely let your teacher know, let me know, and then we can work for there. I hope you enjoyed this video.